como portavoz jefe de la Comisión y de ver que tú también habías hecho un buen camino desde estos años. Así que te damos las gracias por tu trabajo de periodismo sobre asuntos europeos todos estos años. Te deseamos, por supuesto, lo mejor para esta nueva etapa y, por supuesto, también quedaremos en contacto. That's all from us today. We can now move on to your questions. Yes, please.
Hi there, thank you very much, Rosie Burchard, for Feature Story News. The first shipment of Ukrainian grain has left from the port of Odessa bound for Lebanon. Can I get the reaction to this, please? Thank you very much.
Of course, I will call Peter. Obviously, we are very happy that such a first shipment has gone out, but Peter will give you more detail.
Thank you. Indeed, the European Union welcomes the departure of the first commercial ship from the port of Odessa following the signature of the Black Sea Grain Initiative on 22nd July, after months of blockage by Russia and after Russia targeting actually this very port one day after the signature. This is the first commercial ship leaving Ukraine's Black Sea port since the unprovoked Russian aggression on 24th of February and the blocking of Ukrainian ports and grain exports. And this is a welcome first step towards mitigating the global food crisis, which was enhanced by Russia's illegitimate aggression and blockage of aggression against Ukraine, blockage of Ukrainian ports, in addition to mining, destroying the fields in Ukraine, destroying the silos in Ukraine, burning the grain and wheat, or looting and trying to sell it on behalf of Russia. So this is very important and very welcome first step, and we look forward to the implementation of the whole deal and resumption of Ukrainian exports to the customers all around the world where they need it, because the negative consequences of Russia's aggression against Ukraine and blockage of Ukrainian ports are affecting the most vulnerable people in Africa, in Asia, and in the Middle East.
Thank you very much. Nawab, on this issue.
Nawab Khan, Kuna News Agency. Peter, why do you think that Lebanon was chosen as the first country to export the grain?
Thank you, Nawab. Lebanon is to a large extent dependent on imports of Ukrainian wheat and grain. And as you know, Lebanon is going through immense crisis, actually through a multitude of crises, social crisis, economic crisis, financial crisis, and also food crisis. All these crises have been enhanced and multiplied or magnified by the negative effects of Russia's illegal aggression against Ukraine and the ban on Ukrainian exports. So Lebanon is one of the countries which are most affected by these negative consequences. So it's great on one hand that Lebanon actually last week refused to take the grain which was shipped there by Russia, or indirectly by Russia, which appears to be stolen from Ukraine, and that Lebanon would be the destination of the proper export from Ukraine.
Thank you. Any other questions on this? No, hold on. Let's stay on foreign affairs first. Any other questions on Ukraine? No, so we continue on other foreign affairs. Is it your question on foreign affairs? Go ahead.
Hello. I'd like to ask you about the last facts in Kosovo. How do you receive the last decision about the government of Kosovo? And what are you disposed to do to solution the situation? Thank you.
Peter.
Thank you. Well, the European Union and the member states, of course, we are following the events and developments, especially in North Kosovo, very closely and with concern. What is important to say on behalf of the European Union is that everyone involved in this needs to remain calm, and any uncoordinated and unilateral actions that jeopardize the stability and security on the ground and which impede the freedom of movement of all citizens there need to stop immediately. The only way to resolve any disputes, and especially this latest one, is through the dialogue and negotiations, and through the dialogue and negotiations only. The European Union has been and we remain in close contact with both Kosovo and Serbia, and we also coordinate closely with ULEX, with NATO, KFOR mission on the ground, and also with international partners, in particular with the US, and the overall aim of our engagement is to calm down the tensions. The High Representative was in touch with partners on both sides. The EU Special Representative for Pristina-Belgrade dialogue was also in touch with both sides. And after Kosovo accepted the HRVP's Borrell and the US request to postpone the planned measures which triggered this latest unrest, the European Union has invited both parties to meet in Brussels to discuss the way forward to find solutions and to prevent such tensions from reappearing again. Let me recall and repeat once again that all open issues between Serbia and Kosovo need to be addressed through the EU-facilitated dialogue. This is important for the people, both in Kosovo and Serbia, and this is important for the EU perspective of both countries.
Thank you very much. Nicola, I see you have your hand raised on the platform. Is it on this? If so, go ahead.
I would like to ask Peter, I saw a tweet this morning mentioning that Kosovo decided to postpone the decision on request of Mr. Borrell, but information from out in the field show it's not true. So what happened basically, and how do you comment that? Thank you.
Sorry, can you repeat? Information from where doesn't show that it's not true?
Information from out in the field show that Kosovo starting issuing those papers on Merdere crossing. So while Jarinje crossing is closed, what basically happened? What was the agreement between Mr. Borrell and Mr. Kurti this morning? How they developed and what's going on now? Thank you.
Well, it's not really up to me to comment what is going on right now on the ground. The main thing is that there has been intense outreach by the European Union and also by our partners, notably the United States, to both sides with the aim to calm down the tensions. The High Representative, supported by the US, requested Kosovo to postpone the two decisions and two measures which were planned to start as of today and which triggered these tensions. So the government decided to postpone them and, of course, subject to removal of all barriers. And what is very important from our point of view is that everyone involved in these issues remains calm and avoids situations of uncoordinated or unilateral actions that can jeopardize the stability, and these actions, if they are still ongoing, they must stop immediately. And this is the focus and the main point of our engagement and our messaging towards the partners on both sides.
Thank you. Other questions on phone on this? Is it on this? Joe, go ahead.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you, Peter. Are you going to have anyone on the ground in the north of Kosovo on the border? Because obviously you're kind of, the EU plays a role as a mediator and as a form for dialogue. But are you going to actually have like kind of an observer on the ground in the area to see, because you say you've called for these kind of rules to be kind of postponed and promises to be kept. So are you going to actually look and make sure that they're upheld? And where are you at the moment with Serbia and accession? Are you still saying that they have to fully recognise Kosovo before they could be considered for EU membership? Thank you.
Well, if we have anyone, or if we will have anyone on the ground, we are present on the ground. We have our EU office in Pristina, and this office is working on the ground all the time. We have the rule of law mission ULEX, which is also working on the ground. So, of course, we have people on the ground who are engaging with the partners in order to find solutions. And also in this situation... Sorry. And also we are coordinating closely with other actors who are on the ground. It's NATO mission, the KFOR, and it's also other partners, international partners such as the US, specifically in this case. And on the second, where we are in Serbia's accession, I mean, the accession process goes on. Serbian partners know very well, and our position is very clear, also repeated very many times, that the normalization of relations with Kosovo is one of the important aspects on Serbia's and Kosovo's path towards the European Union. So that's why we are urging them to sit down and tackle all the open issues and to calm down any tensions in the dialogue, within the EU facilitated dialogue, that means behind the negotiating table.
Jorge, on this?
Thank you very much. Given the statements heard from President Vučić over the past weeks, days, hours, are you confident that Serbia will accept the IDs and plates through coordination and dialogue, maybe in that meeting that the EU is trying to facilitate in the coming weeks?
Well, we believe that in the end both parties will be able to agree, otherwise we would not be engaged in all these efforts. And we are very much engaged, and we are intensifying our efforts and engagement with the partners to convey to them that this is really the time to sit down and talk and discuss solutions and find solutions in consensus behind a negotiating table. Unilateral actions, uncoordinated actions are not bringing any benefits to people on the ground, because in the end the one who is paying the highest price for any tensions, for any lack of solutions, are the ordinary people on the ground, both Serbians and Kosovars. So this is what we are trying to convey. We are ready. The invitation has been extended again to both parties to come to Brussels to sit down and talk in the framework of the EU facilitated dialogue, because from our point of view this is the best platform to find solutions, and this is the crucial platform and key factor in the EU, or on the EU path of both, of Serbia and Kosovo.
Thank you very much, Peter. I see no further questions on this. Other foreign affairs related questions for Peter? Nawab.
Thank you, Peter. On Saturday, the High Representative published a lengthy article on the Iran nuclear deal on his blog. And I think, if I remember correctly, he warned that if the treaty fails, then it will lead to a nuclear crisis. So has there been any reaction from the Iranian side on this?
Well, High Representative suggested or made the proposals last week already to all the participants of the JCPOA, and we are now, of course, waiting for the reactions from all of them. We are the coordinator, so it's not really up to us to inform about each individual step and each individual reaction. We are focused on speedy reaction, on speedy possibility to resume the talks in Vienna, because the time is not on our side. The space for compromise has been basically used, and the High Representative, he has shared with all the parties what he sees as the best possibility to proceed, what is the best possible deal, and he is now working actively with all the participants of the JCPOA and with the United States to close the deal on the basis of his proposal.
Thank you. Any other questions for Peter on this issue? That is not the case. On other foreign affairs topics, or for Nabila? No. Any other questions for us today on other issues? Yes, please.
Yes, Lorne Cook, the Associated Press. I have a question on migration following the decision by or the ruling this morning by the Court of Justice on the Sea-Watch case. There were many elements in the finding, and among them were that member countries should not just seize a ship based on the number of people that are on board, suggesting that there are too many people on board after a rescue, and obviously the ship is overwhelmed by people who are on there, but also that the member states should respect the rule of law, the law of the sea, the SOLAS Convention on saving lives at sea. I wonder if the Commission, in light of these findings, has any concerns about the action of any member states.
Thank you. Well, the judgment came out not that long ago, so obviously we are, as always, analyzing it. But Anita, our reaction.
Indeed. Thank you for your question. We take note of the court's ruling. It is important to note that the proceedings will now have to continue in the Italian court that made a preliminary request to the European Court of Justice, and it's now for Italy to ensure the follow-up on the ruling. But more broadly, I would like to recall our general position, and in particular in view of the fact that the Mediterranean route continues to be one of the most active routes where innocent lives are put in danger, and assisting those in distress at sea is a moral duty, and it is at the same time also a legal obligation.
Thank you. That's all we can say on this today, but go ahead.
Yes, it's just to follow up on that last point. Why then is the Commission opposed to any search and rescue being conducted in the Mediterranean in a concerted and organised way? These court cases and these incidents are about criminalising NGOs who might use their ships, but also European citizens on land. Several examples in different countries of people who have been convicted of crimes for helping migrants.
Well, I beg to disagree on this case. I think we have put forward quite a coordinated approach in the new pact on migration and asylum, and there we have a strong balance on fair responsibility, but in particular on solidarity. And in fact, we have a pillar of precisely search and rescue, which rests on the need to ensure that there are predictable solidarity mechanisms in place following disembarkations after the search and rescue events. And also pending the current negotiations on the asylum and migration management regulation, we have ensured the support of the Member State with a new voluntary solidarity mechanism. This was agreed on the 22nd of June, where 13 Member States have agreed to a political declaration and where over 88,000 pledges have been secured. Work is ongoing in this regard. And furthermore, we have, so here's another point where I would disagree in this regard, because we have increased our cooperation and coordination to increase the safety at sea. We have also put a recommendation on cooperation between Member States. We have created a search and rescue contact group, which was created in 2021, and we also put forward clarity on NGOs through a guidance, recalling the fact that NGOs helping and humanitarian activity at sea should not be allowed to be criminalized, and such a criminalization would be incompatible with international law.
So, Lord, I believe we've answered that quite extensively, Lord, and put your concerns to rest. It seems not. Go ahead.
No, well, could you just tell me what proactive search and rescue operations the Commission is supporting, the EU is supporting in the Mediterranean? Any single proactive thing where we're out looking for people in the water? I don't believe there's any.
That's not the question that you asked previously. You said, why were you against coordination of Member States' activities in this area? That's a different subject from the one that you're asking now. I think that Anita has responded very, very extensively on all the coordination work that we do with the Member States in order to ensure that they carry out what is their responsibility, which is to carry out search and rescue missions in the sea. It is the Member States' responsibility to carry out these activities, and we are working as much as we can in order to support them in doing this in a concerted and coordinated fashion. Exactly, it's a Member State's competence. Extremely important to remember that. Okay, any other question on this issue for us? That is not the case. Any other Home Affairs questions for Anita? Jérôme, your hand is raised, so go ahead.
Anita, it's now 3 weeks ago since I raised the issue of the refugees sleeping rough on the streets here in Brussels down at Le Petit Chateau at the Asylum Application Centre, and I was down there again this morning, and the situation seems to have worsened because the conditions there are very poor indeed, very dirty down there. There was a bit of rain last night, so it's a very unpleasant scene down there as we speak. So, you know, I'll repeat the same thrust of the question again. I mean, thankfully, we were able to help millions of Ukrainian refugees almost overnight. But when we see refugees coming from places like Afghanistan and African countries sleeping down there on the streets, we don't seem to be able to do anything for them. I mean, the EU can coordinate a response to a refugee crisis when it wants to, but it seems unable or unwilling to do it for other people.
Anita.
Thank you, Jerome, and thanks for bringing this again to our attention. We will further look into this, but for the moment I can only reiterate what I have said before, that as regards the reception capacity, we continue to support the Belgian authorities in increasing their reception capacity. There is also an operating plan that was signed between the EU Asylum Agency and Belgium last year. Additionally, the EU Asylum Agency also has deployed around 35 officers in Belgium to provide operational support on the ground. So for more, I'll need to come back.
And Jerome, I mean, you know full well, as we do, that these are responsibilities of member states. I mean, we have to remember what are the prerogatives of the European Union and what are the responsibilities of member states. Now, the European Union provides billions of euros to member states through lots of programs, in particular the structural funds, including the social fund, etc., in order to support them on a whole host of activities that relate to employment, to training, to social conditions, etc. But all of this is done by the member states. And I think it's extremely important to remember this. Thank you. Any other questions on home affairs for Anita? If that is not the case, I open the floor to other issues. Thanks, Anita. Paola, you had raised your hand before. Go ahead.
Thank you, Eric. Is regarding an item in the Daily News about the MFA assistance to Ukraine. In it, you write that the possible borrowing for Ukraine is foreseen in the funding plan of the Commission for the second half of this year. In your May communication, you had spoken about a 9 billion, up to 9 billion assistance. You have disbursed between today and tomorrow. You will have disbursed an additional 1 billion. That leaves 8 billion. We heard from various commissioners that there is no more guarantees in the budget, meaning that member states need to put up their guarantees. So my questions are, what is keeping you from bringing forward a proposal on the remaining 8 billion, whether or not member states will put up the guarantees? We can see that in the Council. And if and when are you planning to do so?
Thank you. Ariela.
Hi, Paula. First of all, indeed, today we have disbursed the first tranche of the 1 billion MFA to Ukraine. The second tranche should follow tomorrow. So this is in our daily news for all that are interested. There's also a press release. On the question relating to the 8 further billion and why we're not putting forward a proposal, what I can say is that our assessment is that any new exposure to Ukraine should be matched by a loss absorption capacity of 70% to deal with the heightened risk associated to those loans. There is currently no available resources under the current multi-annual budgetary planning to establish the safety buffer needed. Faced with this situation, we are considering alternative solutions, including possible reliance on guarantees provided by member states. With these guarantees, member states would not provide cash to the EU budget, but they would rather guarantee that required amounts would be paid to the EU budget only when and to the extent that they are actually needed. Guarantees have been used before. For example, at the time of the SURE program, just to give you something that you have fresh in your mind, when the EU budget did not have the budgetary capacity to assume liability fully. The Commission will regularly assess the validity of the provisioning rate of 70%, and we will come with a proposal as soon as discussions with the Member States have been finalized. The associated technical works on this second part of the package is ongoing, and we're of course working hard to advance as quickly as possible on this.
Thank you very much. Ariana, any other questions on this for Ariana? Paola, you have a follow-up.
Yes, sorry. So from what I understand, you are having preliminary discussions and you need the consent of all member states before you present a proposal, which is not the way that you moved for instance, in the first instance, my question is, do you need unanimous consent before the Commission makes the proposal?
No, Paula, I think that it has been absolutely clear since the outbreak of the conflict in Ukraine that the Commission is working hand in hand with the Member States when it comes both to sanctions against Russia and to the support that we provide to Ukraine. Now, of course, each institution has its prerogatives, and therefore we have never said that we wait until we have whatever is the required number of member states for a decision before putting that decision on the table. But at the same time, we want to make sure when we put a decision on the table, a proposal on the table, that it is based on constructive discussions which we've had with all of the member states. You've seen it with sanctions. We have done this in the past. Sometimes then sanctions have come through relatively easily. Sometimes it has been more difficult, but it's always been based on intensive consultation. So what Ariada is saying is that we are still at the stage where we are discussing with member states, and we will come forward at the appropriate moment in time. Yes, please.
Picking on this last comment you made, Eric, at the appropriate time, given that there is a joint conference, EU Commission, G7 conference after the summer break, I think it was in September, on Ukraine, we'll aim for having this proposal for that occasion, for the remaining 8 billion euros.
I don't think that we can put any timestamp on when we would want to be able to come forward, but obviously the Commission has said that it would like to be able to provide this support to Ukraine, so the earliest point in time will be the best, but obviously, as Ariana has said, we are dependent on our capacity to ensure our capacity to secure the appropriate guarantees from other sources. So this is what will certainly be the key factor in the timing of any proposal that we could make. Any other question on this? I see no hand raised, so we move on to other topics. Camille.
Vous m'entendez?
Oui.
Oui, merci. J'aimerais bien juste avoir la réaction de la Commission par rapport au processus de candidature du secrétaire général du Parlement européen, donc suite aux révélations du playbook, comme quoi plusieurs groupes politiques s'étaient entendus pour que Alessandro Chiocchetti, donc le Chief of Staff de Roberta Metsola, obtienne le poste avant même que toutes les candidatures soient reçues. Ma question, c'est est-ce que la Commission a des préoccupations concernant ce processus de recrutement? Merci beaucoup.
Merci Camille. La Commission n'a aucune intention de faire le moindre commentaire sur des processus de nomination de fonctionnaires dans les autres institutions. Chaque institution, bien entendu, est régie par ses propres règles et ses propres processus. Y a-t-il d'autres questions pour nous aujourd'hui? Ça n'est pas le cas. Merci beaucoup. Bon appétit. Et pour rappel, le deuxième midday de cette semaine sera vendredi, car des travaux auront lieu ici en salle de presse mardi, mercredi et jeudi. À vendredi donc.
We'll be right back.